It's that time again, folks. It is Wednesday. Let me clear my throat real quick. My name is Stuart Davis. I'm a flawed man of God. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a biblical scholar. I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is talk about Christianity. Talk about Christianity from a layman's perspective, from somebody who's been a Christian all my life. I'm a non denominational Protestant. I don't subscribe to any specific doctrine or denomination, just in the Word every day. So if you're interested in learning more about Christ, learning more about God, learning more about what it means to be a Christian, getting a church, whatever, welcome to the program. Glad to have you here. Please tune in, listen to what we have, do whatever you need to get whatever you need to get from me as a primer to getting in touch with Christianity. If you are just interested in listening to Christian discussions on different things within the church and without the church, welcome to the show. Be part of the chat. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you think that I'm doing right, what you think I'm doing wrong, how different things that we discuss affect you and affects your perspective on things. So, without further ado, we're going to get into the show. Sorry, I don't know why I got to keep clearing my throat. I did have some Easy Mac earlier because I was rounding kids up, and that's easy, quick and easy to do. And I've always been a sucker for Easy Mac. With that said, how is everybody doing tonight? Nico's first, Blaine and Dresden both second. Both are second tonight. Blaine pops up first on the feed, but they both show 7:36. But that's a whole minute. That's a whole minute that this could have happened. I don't know. That's just what I'm seeing, folks. And so here we go. I'm doing all right, Dresden. How are you doing? Things are good. That time off, while I missed you guys, is a good way to just settle in and recoup. Just get some time to relax where you're not worried about um, making sure you're in a set place at a set time. Because it's almost like it's not really quite a second job, right? Not that kind of pressure, but just gives you just a little bit of time to reset. Plus, beach vacation, man, they can't recommend them enough. Luckily enough, I live close enough in the Mid Atlantic to be close to a lot of very good beaches. Ocean City up in Maryland. You got Virginia Beach. Um, you got Virginia Beach, you've got the Outer Banks, and you got the place that we normally go to, which is Topsail and Surf City in North Carolina. And if you go a little bit further down, you've got Myrtle Beach, which is another place I've been to recently this summer, and it's been good. To me, the beach, the ocean, being in the ocean specifically, really helps charge me. It's a great place for me to relax. I have always been a beach person. Want got a goal to not I've got a goal to have a beach house, retire there, do some work. It's it's just a place where I find a lot of peace. Some people get it in the mountains, some people get it just at home and home alone, whatever, or just being around family. Being around family is another good way for me to recharge, but that's I've been I've been way more on point recently. Um, after this vacation. If you've noticed, I've been hitting it pretty consistently at 8 o'clock, starting at 8 o'clock, and I feel good about that. I feel good about that, and that's where we're at. Figs in the chat. Figs in the chat. Fig beat me in fantasy baseball. I'm not very happy about that, but it was just the week matchup. He's still got to get to the playoffs. I've still got to get to the playoffs. We'll see how it is. Currently, I'm beating my brother, which is always good. Got to beat him. He used to beat the brakes off me in every fantasy format we played. Football, hockey, baseball, doesn't matter. He was going to beat me in it. And the past few years, I've been the one at least on the hockey side, taking care of business. So last 6 years, I've won 4 of the last six championships in fantasy hockey. Feels good. And the only 2 that I didn't win, one was cut off because of COVID. They ended the season, so the fantasy season ended, and they gave the winner to just who had the most points at the time, which was not me, but I was cruising. I was cruising for a victory, and the following year after that, which had all sorts of weird schedule changes midway through because of COVID, especially when you've got a lot of Canadian teams. Just things got thrown way off. It was bad. It was bad. But I came back, reasserted myself this year, champion once more. It's good to have a sense of normalcy where I'm winning, right? So, Fig's in the chat. Glad to have you here, Fig. After this stream, friend of the show is going to be, and let me pull up. He's going to have, and if you guys are fans of, I know a lot of you fans came here from Nick Ricada, who is also apparently enjoying some time off and hopefully coming back. But Power Keg Greg is going to be doing a show with Ryan, the editor, at 8 o'clock Central, which is 9 o'clock Eastern, where I'm at. So when I end this show, I'm going to go over and probably dally a little bit over there in that chat, support him and listen to see what's going on. Because Greg's a good dude, got a lot of good things to talk about. And not only do I want to support the channel, but I also want to see what he's talking to Ryan at the editor about, because I think it'll be a pretty good show. So if I could just give a plug in for Power Keg Greg, just look him up. He's been on this show before. He is a very close friend with another friend of the show, Eric Rollon, and it's going to be worthwhile. It's going to be worthwhile. So I can be in the chat like you guys, which I don't get to be often. So look, last night was an awesome stream. I thought it went long, but we had a lot to talk about. We talked about Joshua and the end of Joshua's tenure and life with the Israelites and what he did. I don't think a lot of people remember Joshua as being a warrior, but I don't think a lot of people, and he's got one of the greatest Old Testament quotes, as for me and my house will follow the Lord. But I don't think a lot of people give him enough credit for what he was able to accomplish. Now, he was set up for success by Moses. That's not in question at all. Moses did amazing things. But he took what was given to him, and he took what he saw from Moses and what he learned from Moses, and he prayed and he was a loyal servant to God and did what he was commanded. And what he did in the aftermath, and just the conquest of the land of Canaan, becoming the promised land, settling the Israelites in, and doing it in a mostly, probably one of the most obedient to God lives that you're going to see. You've got Joseph in one hand, you've got Daniel on the other hand, guys who just consistently righteous throughout their biblical accounts. They didn't have the weight of responsibility on them that Joshua did. And Joshua, I think he gave an effort that is elite as far as a man of faith and a servant of God. But I don't think he gets one book of the Bible where it's really just about him, and so I don't think he gets as much recognition. Doesn't get as much recognition. He doesn't have the big tales like David and Goliath, or Daniel in the lion's den, Joseph in his coat, and just the whole story arc of Joseph, and obviously Noah. It's just he's kind of doing it all. He's kind of doing it all. So let's give Joshua his due. But at the end of our reading last night, Joshua has passed away, and they sent him off, and they talked about how the generation of Joshua's generation fared, and they did so in obedience with Christ. And largely they did. So now we're going to pick up with Judges. Judges has got lots to talk about. And we're going to find out what Israelites do. You take away Moses, and when you take away the Joshua, you take away these strong personalities, these faithful personalities. What do the Israelites do? Do they remember the commandments? Do they remember what God promised to do for them if they were obedient, and if they were disobedient? Would they forget, or would they not care? We'll find out. So, without further ado, I bring you the book of Judges. Judges 1. Israel fights the remaining Canaanites. After the death of Joshua, the Israelites asked the Lord, "Who of us is to go up first to fight against the Canaanites?" The Lord answered, "Judah shall go up. I have given the land into their hands." The men of Judah then said to the Simeonites, their fellow Israelites, "Come up with us into the territory allotted to us to fight against the Canaanites. We, in turn, will go with you into yours." So the Simeonites went with them. A little bit of brotherhood there between the tribes. Hey, look, come on up with us. We'll do the same thing. We'll support you guys. When Judah attacked, the Lord gave the Canaanites and Perizzites into their hands, and they struck down 10,000 men at Bezek. It was there that they found Adoni-Bezek and fought against him, putting to rout the Canaanites and Perizzites. Adoni-Bezek fled, but they chased him and caught him and cut off his thumbs and big toes. Look, I don't know. I mean, makes a lot of things difficult. I know for me, it makes it difficult to play video games. That's gotta suck. just out of an inconvenience thing. It's like Chinese water torture. We just cut off your thumbs. Go ahead, enjoy your life. Then Adoni-Bezek said, 70 kings with their thumbs and big toes cut off have picked up scraps under my table. Now God has paid me back for what I did to them. They brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. Oh, okay. So some just desserts there. Some just desserts. So they did it because apparently he was doing it to other people. What a jerk. But he brought him to Jerusalem, and he died there. The men of Judah attacked Jerusalem and also took it. They put to the city the sword. They put the city to the sword and set it on. Hold on. Let me back up. The men of Judah attacked Jerusalem also and took it. They put the city to the sword and set it on fire. After that, Judah went down to fight against the Canaanites living in the hill country, the Negev and the western foothills. They advanced against the Canaanites living in Hebron, formerly called Kiriath Arba, and defeated Sheshai, Ahiman, and Talmai. From there, they advanced against the people living in Debir, formerly called Kiriath Sefer. And Caleb, not to be forgotten, said, "I will give my daughter Aksah in marriage to the man who attacks and captures Kiriath Sefer." Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took it. So Caleb gave his daughter Aksah to him in marriage. Cousins. Sometimes Israel's a lot like West Virginia. I say West Virginia. Look, I'm a Virginian, guys. We have a standing rivalry with West Virginia. West Virginia split from Virginia during the Civil War, and obviously West Virginia is hill country. It's coal country, and so we make a lot of deliverance type jokes about it. Let's see. All right, so Caleb, who we know, another another real good guy, solid guy from the Exodus, gives up his daughter in marriage to whoever captures this this location. Now, how old is he during this? So how old would she be? Anyway, one day when she came to Othniel, she urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off of her donkey, Caleb asked her, "What can I do for you?" She replied, "Do me a special favor. Since you have given me land in the Negev, give me also springs of water." So Caleb gave her the upper and lower springs. The descendants of Moses' father-in-law, the Kenite, went up from the city of palms with the people of Judah to live among the inhabitants of the desert of Judah in the Negev near Arad. I handled those words pretty well, I think. Then the men of Judah went with the Simeonites, their fellow Israelites, and attacked the Canaanites living in Zaphath, and they totally destroyed the city. Therefore, it was called Hormah. Judah also took Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ekron, each city with its territory. Dresden? No. 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 Look, Virginia's got the whole. We're going to talk about this when I'm done with this chapter. The Lord was with the men of Judah. They took possession of the hill country, but they were unable to drive the people from the plains because they had chariots fitted with iron. As Moses had promised, Hebron was given to Caleb, who drove from it the three sons of Anak. The Benjamites, however, did not drive out the Jebusites who were living in Jerusalem. To this day, the Jebusites live there with the Benjamites. Now the tribes of Joseph attacked Bethel, and the Lord was with them. When they sent men to spy out Bethel, formerly called Luz, the spies saw a man coming out of the city and said to him, "Show us how to get into the city, and we will see that you are treated well." So he showed them, and they put the city to the sword, but spared the man and his whole family, not unlike what we've seen in the past. He then went to the land of the Hittites, where he built a city and called it Luz, which is its name to this day. But Manasseh did not drive out the people of Beth-shan or Tanak or Dor or Ibleam or Megiddo and their surrounding settlements, for the Canaanites were determined to live in that land. When Israel became strong, they pressed the Canaanites into forced labor, but never drove them out completely. Nor did Ephraim drive out the Canaanites living in Gezer, but the Canaanites continued to live there among them. Neither did Zebulun drive out the Canaanites living in Kitron or Nahalal, so these Canaanites lived among them. But Zebulun did subject them to forced labor. Nor did Asher drive out those living in Akko or Sidon or Aleb or Azkib or Axib or Helba or Aphek or Rehob. The Asherites lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land because they did not drive them out. Neither did Naphtali drive out those living in Beth Shemesh or Beth Anath, but the Naphtalites too lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land, and those living in Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath became forced laborers for them. The Amorites confined the Danites to the hill country, not allowing them to come down into the plain. And the Amorites were determined also to hold out in Mount Heres, Aijalon, and Shaalbim. But when the power of the tribes of Joseph increased, they too were pressed into forced labor. The boundary of the Amorites was from Scorpion Pass to Selah and beyond. Quick question, folks. This last paragraph of verses, is that doing what God asked? Canaanites supposed to be driven from the land to the point of genocide. Do they do it? It seems overwhelmingly like they did not. The Danites let the Amorites confine them to hill country, West Virginia. So I'm sure that by not obeying the Lord's command, that things will be okay, right? Let's see. Before we get into that, West Virginia is not better than Virginia. Now, politically, I tend to lean more towards what West Virginia said, what just West Virginia's like. But West Virginia doesn't have the DC suburbs that Virginians have to deal with. If you look at the vast majority of Virginians, they mostly agree with me, but have to deal with a lot of crap because of Alexandria, Loudoun County, and Fairfax. It's a bunch of garbage. It's a bunch of swamp. So Nico says it's a repeat at this point. Never get rid of the people the Lord told them to and always lived among them. Exactly. And what did he say because of that? They're going to tempt the Israelites to be like them, to worship their gods, to be part of their culture. Well, part of their culture is why the Canaan, this wasn't just God giving them God wasn't going to displace good people because he made a promise. Bad thunderstorm going through here right now. God wasn't going to give away and kick out a land of good people just because he made a promise to the Israelites. No, he knew what was going on in the land of Canaan. There ought to be a very interesting backstory into what the land of Canaan was and the people there and why they had pissed God off so much. Obviously, they were doing things like human sacrifices and whatnot, but it seemed like it was a very personal thing for God and what he was going after the Canaanites for. Why did they live in that land in the first place? Seemed like it was kind of a good place that they may have been given an opportunity to be holy or be servants, and they're not. And they're not. So the Canaanites have a problem, a very specific problem. It's a very real problem. And the problem is they're on God's bad side. And the Israelites' problem, the Danites, the Asherites, the Naphtalites, all these folks, Manassites, I guess is what you would call them, tribes of Joseph, their big problem is they let these people who are on God's bad side live among them. So let's see what happens in the next chapter. The angel of the Lord at Bochim. Little tidbit of information here for some of us, you guys who are laymen like me. There's a lot of people out there who believe that the angel of the Lord is in fact Jesus. And there's a lot of very good arguments in support of that. So take from that what you will. But they, like I said, if you will run into people who are very astute in their biblical understanding, and they believe that the angel of the Lord is in fact Christ Almighty. The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bochim and said, I brought you up out of Egypt. See, look, and here's an interesting thing. This is just this translation. I'm using the Niv. And so maybe there's something lost in translation, but it very much sounds like the angel of the Lord is saying, I did this, which is what God did. God and Jesus are the same. We're parts of the same in the Trinity and however it exists. Anyway, I brought you up out of Egypt and led you into the land I swore to give to your ancestors. I said, I will never break my covenant with you. And you shall not make a covenant with the people of this land, but you shall break down their altars. Yet you have disobeyed me. Why have you done this? And I have also said, I will not drive them out before you. They will become traps for you, and their gods will become snares to you. When the angel of the Lord had spoken these things to all the Israelites, the people wept aloud, and they called that place Bochim. There they offered sacrifices to the Lord. Okay. They cried about it, and they offered built an altar. They cried about it. They built an altar and offered sacrifices to the Lord there. Did they stop doing what God told them that they were doing wrong? Yep. They did not. Because the next chapter, disobedience and defeat. Quick recap here. After Joshua had dismissed the Israelites, they went to take possession of the land, each to their own inheritance. The people served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and of the elders who outlived him and who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Joshua, son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110, and they buried him in the land of his inheritance at Timnath Heres, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. After that, the whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors. Another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. All right, stop. This is a very interesting parallel. What do we call the generation of men and women who served or who lived during the Great Depression, the World War II, and were part of what built the U.S. into the superpower that it is today? We call them the greatest generation. They were men and women who just acted like men and women, like they should have, in some respects. In some respects, socially, I mean, there was alarming racism and whatnot, but a lot of that stuff got better during that generation. Nevertheless, we call them the greatest generation. And then we've got the boomers and we've got the Gen Xers and the millennials and whatnot. But a lot of the blame for things is that the greatest generation and the boomers did not instill the respect necessary to be continue to be solid citizens and solid people to the millennials and the Gen Zers and some of the Gen Xers. So we have this cycle. Weak men create hard times create strong men create good times create weak men. And this is kind of what's happening, right? But whose fault is it on this last part? Another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Does that mean they ignored what those people said or what that previous generation had taught them? Or did they not do a good job instilling that knowledge of the Lord and his deeds to Israel? Whichever happened, they grew up not knowing the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. And then we start the cycle again. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals. They forsook the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshiped various gods of the peoples around them. They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsook him and served Baal and the Ashtoreths. In his anger against Israel, the Lord gave them into the hands of raiders who plundered them. He sold them into the hands of their enemies all around, whom they were no longer able to resist. Whenever Israel went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to defeat them, just as he had sworn to them, and they were in great distress. Yes, Nico, it's smiting time. But it's not so much smiting time, actually. What this is I'm giving you blessings. I'm giving you my protection. I'm fighting on your side. And yet now you are deciding not to do these things. So I'm just going to step back. I'm not going to be with you. I'm going to allow these people who are jealous of what you have and this land overflowing with milk and honey to come in and take a bite out of you. And that's what happens. Whenever Israel went out to fight, the hand of the Lord was against them to defeat them. Just as he had sworn to them, they were in great distress. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hands of these raiders. Yet they would not listen to their judges, but prostituted themselves to other gods and worshiped them. They quickly turned from the ways of their ancestors who had been obedient to the Lord's commands. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge and saved them out of the hands of their enemies as long as the judge lived. For the Lord relented because of their groaning under those who had oppressed and afflicted them. But when the judge died, the people returned to ways even more corrupt than those of their ancestors, following other gods and serving and worshiping them. They refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. And there you go. There you go with that. What's the solution? All right, God finds a righteous person, brings them up, has them lead the Israelites in victory and redemption, retaking and reestablishing that their end of the covenant they make with God. They start to obey the rule. Judge dies. Guess what? Everybody goes in the tumult. It's a vicious cycle that the Israelites, do they ever get out of that cycle? I don't know. Have we ever gotten out of that cycle? Prostituted themselves to other gods. That's so strong wording. I mean, it is, but at the same time, if your worship demon offers you something in payment for you to do something, prostituting, you're whoring yourself out. Subscribe to my OnlyFans. Demons subscribing to Israelites OnlyFans. Only Hebes. Okay. Therefore, the Lord was very angry with Israel and said, because this nation has violated the covenant I ordained for their ancestors and has not listened to me, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it as their ancestors did. The Lord had allowed those nations to remain. He did not drive them out at once by giving them into the hands of Joshua. I'm not going to read that, Nico, but yes, you will. You will get screwed. Hence the prostitution. Judges 3. This is a good lead in for the rest of Judges. These are the nations the Lord left to test all those Israelites who had not experienced any of the wars in Canaan. He did this only to teach warfare to the descendants of the Israelites who had not had previous battle experience. The 5 rulers of the Philistines, all the Canaanites, the Sidonians, and the Hivites living in the Lebanon mountains from Mount Baal Hermon to Lebo Hamath. They were left to test the Israelites to see whether they would obey the Lord's commands, which he had given their ancestors through Moses. The Israelites lived among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. They took their daughters in marriage and gave their own daughters to their sons and served their gods. Precisely what Moses told them would happen because God told him that. Prostituting yourselves out and also basically selling your sons and daughters into damnation. Idiots. This is culturally dumb. Culturally degenerate. Draw the parallels to today that you will. What's going on? Othniel. The Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They forgot the Lord their God and served the Baals and the Asherahs. The anger of the Lord burned against Israel, so that he sold them into the hands of the Cushan Rishathaim, Rishathaim, king of Aram Naharaim, to whom the Israelites were subject for 8 years. But when they cried out to the Lord, he raised up for them a deliverer, Othniel, son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, who saved them. We know about him. He's a great leader, and he's the first of the judges, it looks like. The Spirit of the Lord came on him so that he became Israel's judge and went to war. The Lord gave Cushan Rishathaim, king of Aram, into the hands of Othniel, who overpowered him. So the land had peace for 40 years, until Othniel, son of Kenaz, died. 8 years of oppression, 40 years of peace. 40 years of doing what you're supposed to do. So Othniel dies. Then what happens? Ehud. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Because they did this evil, the Lord gave Eglon, king of Moab, power over Israel. Getting the Ammonites and the Amalekites to join him, Eglon came and attacked Israel, and they took possession of the city of palms. The Israelites were subject to Eglon, king of Moab, for 18 years. A little bit longer for than 8 years. Again, the Israelites cried out to the Lord, and he gave them a deliverer, Ehud, a left-handed man, the son of Gera the Benjamite. The Israelites sent him with tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Oh, here we go. Where's Nernaeth? Now Ehud had made a double-edged sword about a cubit long, which he strapped to his right thigh under his clothing. He presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab, who was a very fat man. After Ehud had presented the tribute, he sent on their way those who had carried it. But on reaching the stone images near Gilgal, he himself went back to Eglon and said, "Your Majesty, I have a secret message for you." The king said to his attendants, "Leave us." And they all left. We'll get that to a minute, Nico. Ehud then approached him while he was sitting alone in the upper room of his palace and said, "I have a message from God for you." As the king rose from his seat, Ehud reached with his left hand, drew the sword from his right thigh, and plunged it into the king's belly. Even the handle sank in after the blade, and his bowels discharged. Ehud did not pull the sword out, and the fat closed in over it. Then Ehud went out to the porch. He shut the doors of the upper room behind him and locked them. After he had gone, the servants had found the doors of the upper room locked. They said, "He must be relieving himself in the inner room of the palace." Yeah, well, his bowels did let go. They waited to the point of embarrassment, but when he did not open the doors of the room, they took a key and unlocked them. There they saw their lord fallen to the floor, dead. While they waited, Ehud got away. He passed by the stone images and escaped to Seirah. When he arrived there, he blew a trumpet in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went down with him from the hills, with him leading them. "Follow me," he ordered, "for the Lord has given Moab, your enemy, into your hands." So they followed him down and took possession of the fords of the Jordan that led to Moab. They allowed no one to cross over. At that time, they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all vigorous and strong. Not one escaped. That day, Moab was made subject to Israel, and the land had peace for 80 years. Shamgar flow in. After Ehud came Shamgar, son of Anath, who struck down 600 Philistines with an ox goad. He too saved Israel. Nico, taken to a different perspective, even the Lord's blessing cannot protect them from the dilemma if the good men, bad man, and the times they create, which continues to this day, I guess is the better way, to this day. The Lord's blessings can protect you all the time. And I think that we see that when we are disobedient, and we are sinful, and we are earning condemnation for what we do. We are earning suffering. We are pushing God away with our sin, and yet still we receive blessings. It happens. I think we can all count on times where we did the wrong thing and good things still happen to us, in spite of that. So I don't think it's the Lord's blessings can protect whenever. The Lord can do whatever he wants. We could all be a bunch of idiots going around doing all sorts of stupid things, the Lord's blessings. But the difference is the Lord will pull that back if we show that we're not faithful to him. And I think that this is less of a what we see where from a responsibility standpoint and how we're managing the land, how we're managing our society and whatnot. This is good men create easy times, and then those easy times create weak men, bad men, who in turn disobey God, forget him, and do all the things that lead to God saying, you guys need a timeout. I'm going to pull back. I'm going to be on the side of your enemies so that you can learn this lesson. And then we see that 8 years. They do get 8 years. They get 40 years after that with a good judge doing what they're supposed to. Then they get 18 years for what they do. They cry out. God gives them another judge. They get 80 years of peace. And then we have Shamgar. He too saved Israel. They don't give a lot of that. Tomorrow we're going to talk about Deborah. Deborah's awesome for the ladies who are looking for something to listen to get a gal that they can look up to. Deborah's one of the first in the Bible that you really get. I said one of the first, not the first, one of the first, where she really shines in her own light. So, and I think she does a good job establishing what the patriarchy is as Christianity defines it, and not necessarily what men define it as, but basically giving credence to the fact that God has created men and women to fill different roles, and gender roles are established by God in the natural order. There we go. Deborah's an affirmation of that. And we'll talk about that as we discuss it. And but again, she is righteous and in what she does, and she does what she has to do, basically with God at her back. So with that said, what's the judge here? Like a court judge? No, think of judge as a chieftain almost. Judge is there because you got to think Israel doesn't have a king. It's very much, I think that the government that God sets up in Israel at the beginning of Israel, before the kings, it's my favorite form of government. It's very loose. It's very loose. And it is like, look, we have the law of Moses. Exist as a society of people. Treat each other well. Love each other. Love me. Do these things that we discussed in Leviticus and Numbers and whatnot in the book of the laws of the Lord. I think I got that right. But anyway, when you do have an issue, you take it to the elders, and the elders from that point, they do whatever it is that they need to do to get to making the best decision. That is up to taking that issue to God. And the judge, I think, at this point is a person who comes in and is more of a, like a chieftain, where he's not necessarily, or he or she is not necessarily in charge of things, but is a leader, is a person that other people are going around. And when there are disputes, they are, kind of the King Solomon, and offering, look, this is what needs to happen. This is what needs to happen. This is a person that God has their ear, and they are leading in that manner. So no, it's not like a court judge, but it's more like a judge, not the court judge that we understand it, but more like a much more primitive version of a judge, where like a king would hold court and make decisions and whatnot. A little bit less than that, because like I said, they're more, they're more saying, look, this is what needs to happen. Anyway, with that said, hey, look, 45 minutes in, we got another 15 minutes till Power Keg Greg stops up. So go get some food, get a drink, go to the bathroom, do whatever you can, and tune in to his show because I think it'll be pretty interesting. I'll be there for the following stream. Let me see if he's got it up. I'm sure he does. He's been talking about it since yesterday, so let me see it real quick. Doesn't look like he's got it. Let me refresh. I don't see it up here. He's got his hot button co-op up. He's got his playlists up. But I don't see that he is. Hang on. Sort by date added. Date added newest. All videos. Let me try this. Nope. Well, crap. Yeah, the last one we got is from yesterday. So I don't know if he hasn't opened the thing up or not. If he's having some issues. Some whatchamacallit issues. Technical difficulties. Hang on, let me see if I can pull him up on Twitter since we've got some time. Send. Let me see if he's got it up on his. Wait. Here we go. I found it on Twitter. I found the link on Twitter. So let's see if we can do it that way. I was gonna link his channel if I couldn't, but it looks like he's got it in his Twitter. Boop, 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 boop. Let's see. There it is. Boom. I don't know why it's not showing up on his channel, but it's on his All right, there we go. So if you want to head over to Greg's room, this is I think this is a non-faith related thing, but like I said, a lot of you guys come over from Nick's stream, And if you're looking for something else to listen to after the show ends momentarily, hop on over to him. Guys, middle of the week, it's great. Glad to have you on. Not as many viewers, not as much discussion here as normal, but as always, glad to have you here. Nico, Blaine, Dresden, Porcupine, Fig, Fig making his appearance. I think I said Nico, but there you go. There you go. But with that said, you all guys have an awesome evening. And if I see you in the chat in Greg's stream, then I'll see you then. But in the meantime, have a good night and God bless.